All right, we are ready, folks. We are live. You have to forgive us how everything looks right here. You're going to hear a disembodied voice, and that will be JC because we're still working on the camera situations. You notice we're having a whole new look right here, working on different camera angles, getting new audio equipment, working on all this good
New
stuff.
software in general. It's a massive overhaul.
It is completely massive. So trying to bring you more content, get more guests in here, and do things a little bit different going into 2023, and really expand Undefined Radio and all of our shows. We're adding new shows here in the next few weeks. I'm really excited about Bluff City, company I wrestle for. We'll be doing an after show from Bluff City, which will be fun to do. So we're adding that a Myths and Mysteries show that we're going to do, exploring all kinds of fun stuff there, and hopefully got a few more shows coming as well. So stay tuned for all of that. So bear with us as we get through here. We'll have the bells and whistles back soon, creating all new intros and stuff for the shows. And we're nearing the end of our football show as a thing, but we still got a few weeks.
Yeah.
XFL is on its way.
XFL is on its way.
So
they're ready to roll.
Now, after we left y'all last week, of course, big tragedy hit the NFL. Shook everybody.
Literally that night.
It was the Damar Hamlin situation for Buffalo Bills, which was terrifying. Look, we've seen some insane hits in the NFL, some gruesome injuries, but nothing really shook us, I don't think, like this Damar Hamlin situation where you see him, he makes what looks to be a routine tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
I mean, T. Higgins lowers the shoulder and runs through him, but we see that
all the time.
every week in every game.
Yeah.
And Damar Hamlin pops up as these guys normally do.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he gets to his feet, it looks like he readjusts his face mask, and then he just collapses backwards.
Yeah, it was so off-putting is not the word, and I won't say horrific, but it was one of those things that took you so by surprise. You almost couldn't believe what you were seeing, especially when they came running out on the field with all the CPR stuff.
Yeah. So,
and you're like, oh my God.
For me, when I left here last week, I went to band practice as I normally do. And I was leaving band practice, got in my truck, and listened, and I always have the game already set on the radio for when I get done with practice. And as soon as I crank up my truck, I hear, "Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us," I was like, what has happened? Because I know it's not far enough into this game for something wild to have gone on. And they are talking about how they've been working on Damar Hamlin on the field for 9 minutes already at that point.
Yep.
And I think they ultimately worked on it for half an hour ultimately before they even were able to get him off the field.
Because they couldn't take any chances of not resuscitating him on the spot.
Yeah,
and it was really then that we found out that this is how dire this situation really was.
I mean, the blunt force trauma caused cardiac arrest.
Yes.
And so his heart stopped. He wasn't breathing. They got his heart going again, got him on the ambulance. On the way to the hospital, his heart stops again. They got it going once more. They intubated him. I think the next day they got his lung capacity up to about 50% to where it was 50% intubation, 50% his own self-breathing. But by some minor miracle and just, I guess and maybe it's just being a peak conditioned athlete, professional athlete, that he was able to go home today. He was discharged from the hospital. I think he's back in Buffalo now, actually.
Yeah, and I think it goes to the type of event that happened to him. Like, it wasn't caused by blocked arteries.
Right.
It wasn't anything where his heart was damaged or irregular to begin with. It was such a freak thing. There's a name for it too. And I tried to say
myocardial defibrillation or something.
No, it's it starts with a C, both of those two words to it. And I tried all week. I was like, I'm not even going to pronounce it anymore. I'm not even going to do it. I'm not going to embarrass myself for this show.
Myocardial infarction.
But it's a rare thing. So your heart has a rhythm that it goes through, right?
And an electrical current.
And so after every stroke, it almost resets itself. So you go down, it pops, it resets, it goes right back up. It takes like milliseconds to do.
Right.
The hit just happened to be right at that moment. That's the only thing that could have caused that. And that's what happened to him. I mean, it's just a freak thing. It happens more regularly in hockey and baseball than it does. That's why you hardly ever see that in the NFL. That's why it was so freaky. It's more common in those, like the hockey puck hitting you right there, the speed and the force of which it hits, just to knock the heart out of rhythm, but it had to hit at the right moment to do it. And I heard one of the guys I follow, he was talking about in police training, in bulletproof vests, they have actually a plate inside the vest that goes specifically over the heart.
Right.
So if you are shot, it disperses the energy out. So that very thing doesn't happen. The vest is going to stop the bullet anyway, but they put that extra plate in there to disperse the energy so it doesn't do that to the heart. And so, which I never do. I've always wondered if that was a thing because I see guys get chopped in wrestling all the time.
Right.
So I'm like, that can't be good for the old ticker. For where those hands hit you every time. You always heard of the heart punch.
Well, it also depends on how they drive their hand through with the chop.
Oh, no doubt. But it's just the fact that what they ever caught that palm just right in the boom and no, dude. And so it was scary. But the outpouring of love from everybody was incredible for this young man. And not only that, but I think it shook the NFL world. They weren't going to play this game.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not heard about this and you're watching this program, for all intents and purposes, this man died on the field.
Yes.
He died in an NFL football game.
That's right.
And they were able to bring him back, which is something I have never, ever experienced. No one in that stadium had ever experienced it. You saw how visibly shaken everyone on the Bills was.
Oh, yeah.
Let alone the Bengals players. And so when they suspended that game, I was like, there's no, especially where it was on the schedule. I was like, everyone's concern is with Damar Hamlin.
That's right.
There's no way this game gets made up. It can't.
And because there's not enough time left in the season. And look, it was an important game.
Yeah.
It was
crucial.
super important for Buffalo, especially Buffalo. Because all they had to do was win, but all Buffalo had to do was win out number 1 seed because they'd already beaten Kansas City.
Right.
And when they made the choice not to play, and it's the right choice. There's no question. It was the right choice. But that automatically set the whole AFC playoffs into a whole different tilt right there.
Yeah, I mean, now we've got a situation where if Kansas City and Buffalo are playing each other for the AFC championship game, it's going to be a neutral site game.
Yeah, which is if that happens, it's going to be wild.
Because, Buffalo did beat Kansas City, but Kansas City won more games.
That's right.
But also, Buffalo didn't play as many games. So it does something weird with the winning percentages. So they're going to have a neutral site game.
Which is about the only fair way you could do it. Now, I've heard a lot of different scenarios because people are saying, well, just move everything back. Or you can't do that. There are ticket sales involved, and not only ticket sales, but these cities who host these games, all those businesses,
people's travel plans,
all of it. There's no way. It's too massive of a thing to do to say, we're going to push everything back a week. Because then you got all the people who made plans to be off work during that travel time. There's no way you can do it. And I get what a lot of people are trying. There's just no way you can do that. And so I think the NFL did the best thing they could in this situation. They made it
as complicated as they could.
Well, that's for sure.
I think
that is the NFL.
It kind of ultimately worked itself out now to where if the Bills and Chiefs play each other in the AFC title game, it's a neutral site game.
Yeah.
Unless the Bengals get in there, but I think the only way it gets weird is if the Bengals and Bills end up playing each other in the AFC title game. I don't even know if that's possible. Based on seeding, I haven't paid enough attention to it to really know.
Yeah. We'll definitely need to look at that too. Because it's a wild thing. But the best news out of all of it is Damar Hamlin. He's getting healthier. That's great. He was responsive again.
Yeah.
I mean, it could.
I think it's safe to say he's not playing the rest of the season.
No. And supposedly, from what I've heard, and who knows how true this is, but supposed to be making a full recovery. They seem to believe he will. That there was no permanent damage done.
Right. It's just
a freak thing. Now, I don't know how that affects that young man mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I would be concerned with how long he was without oxygen. You know?
And that's the thing. I mean, I don't know. It's those things like that. It's so scary, and you really see the fragility of human beings. And football is a tough sport. Those collisions are. Look, and here's some of the things that kind of aggravates me a little bit. Is you hear people saying, you have your people who are just going to get upset about everything.
That's true.
They just going to get upset about it, but they don't care. Because people are making comparisons about, they're saying football's that's why it's so dangerous, but then you got police. Look, two totally different things, apples and oranges. It's not the same things. Yes, we know being a police officer is dangerous. Being in the military is dangerous. But if you don't think being a football player and throwing your body out there on the line for the entertainment of everything else, this goes all the way back to the days of the Coliseum.
Yeah.
People pay for entertainment. We do.
Brutal forms of entertainment.
Exactly. So before you get your panties in a wad.
That's why boxers make so much money.
Exactly.
That's why UFC does the numbers it does, even though they don't pay their talent. But that's a whole different discussion for another show.
But that's the thing, right? So before you start casting stones and talking about, well, these other people need to be paid too, you enjoy the fruits of what they do, which is bringing entertainment into your lives.
The thing is, we create the revenue for these NFL players to make the money that they
do. Absolutely.
Police just get our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you think police should get paid more money, pay more taxes.
Yeah. And look, if you want to argue about the police making more, I agree. It's a dangerous job.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue against it.
But and again,
there's a way that works, and it's a whole different structure.
Right. My whole deal is the hypocrisy of it.
Yeah, the NFL is a private enterprise. That's what you have to understand.
It is like any other business. They pay what the revenue stream is. Now, if you want to talk about unfair and pays and stuff like that, well, like what was it? The men's national soccer team having to fork over money to the women's national soccer team or whatever it is because they don't make as much money. I wonder why that is. Women's soccer is not as popular as men's soccer is.
It's not.
They don't generate the revenue.
They're a better team.
They're a better team, but they don't generate the revenue.
Right.
Because the eyes aren't there for it.
If you want to go down that whole conversation, just listen to Bill Burr's Live at Red Rocks. He's got a whole bit about the WNBA and the pay scale.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
So
it's pretty awesome.
We won't cover that right now.
No, but that's what we heard a lot of this, the hypocrisy of it. But here's the thing: it's a violent sport. It's a tough sport. These men and this is a young man. He has barely even started his life, achieving his dream. His organization, where they raise money to buy toys for kids, went from just a few $1,000s to multi-million dollars overnight.
They had a GoFundMe for him. I forget how much. Last I heard, I think they were over $8 million raised for his GoFundMe. And then, not to mention, in NFL contracts, and almost everyone. Now, maybe your superstar players probably don't have these to the same extent.
Yeah.
But there's a clause in there that if you go on IR, then you get paid a reduced salary.
That's right.
Based on your rate of pay. The Buffalo Bills were able to work with the NFL and the NFL Players Association to basically nullify, because they had to put Damar on IR because they needed the roster spot because they're about to make a playoff push.
Yes.
But they were able to work with the NFL and the NFLPA to actually get Damar his full rate of pay for the remainder of the season,
which was
playoff bonuses and everything,
which is the absolute right call to make.
100%.
I mean, it's just, and that's when you see the good aspects of the NFL and who some of these executives are, because there's so much money the NFL makes. It is an insane amount.
Billions.
It's ridiculous. So thoughts and prayers out to that young man. Glad he's getting better, and we can go back to concentrating on some good football. But Peyton Hillis, you hear about Peyton Hillis?
I did.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
We've heard about several people, celebrities. Chad Gaspar was one of those, right?
Yeah, Shad Gaspar.
When he was trying to save his son from drowning, getting pulled into the Gulf.
This also happened to another NFL running back. God, it had to be in the 70s or 80s.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I want to say he played for the Chiefs, maybe. I could be wrong about that, but these weren't even his kids. These were some random young kids he saw swimming in a lake, drowning. And that guy went out and died saving those kids.
Yep.
But Peyton Hillis right now is in ICU. He's basically in kidney failure.
Yep.
As it is kind of a touch and go situation for him at the moment. Peyton Hillis, probably the greatest 1-year wonder in the history of the NFL.
No doubt. And hero in Arkansas. I mean, that's where he's from.
Absolutely.
And
he was the third best running back at Arkansas when he was there.
Yeah.
I mean, he had Felix Jones and Darren McFadden in front of him.
Oh, yeah.
Which he was playing fullback, really.
That's right.
He was never supposed to be an NFL running back, and the Browns just kind of had a stroke of bad luck, and then he pulled a Mike Allstott and went from fullback to halfback and just started running through and around and over everybody.
And the fullback position used to be a marquee position. I mean,
Yeah.
every team had a fullback.
Yeah. Now people have spread it to a power back and a speed back. It's typically how people try to build their teams, and
That's
both
right.
of them playing the running back position because you get more speed out of it ultimately,
Exactly.
but you get a guy who has a little more thump. Whereas fullback was just in there to eat bodies.
Yeah, the days of the Moose Johnstons and the Mike Allstotts, it's a long.
Well, and as much as I love Moose was no Mike Allstott.
No, but I'm talking about the guys who would stick their nose in there.
Oh yeah,
they didn't get any glory yards. They didn't get any of the fun stuff. They just
got
went there
the
and
short
punched you in the
yardage
mouth.
stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And they paved the way for the running backs. Moose more so than Allstott. Allstott could do it all.
Yeah,
this dude was used in a variety of ways. And sad. But we got a national championship game tonight, dude. We've got a national.
Do.
So
it's kind of hard to make that transition.
it is, but I figured we could spend all day talking about a lot of this stuff.
Could.
And it's we got to get this show on the road because tonight we've got TCU, Georgia, who nobody had this at the beginning of the season as the championship game in this college football year. Nobody had this.
I mean,
I don't believe you.
We all knew that Georgia was going to recruit well enough that they could probably make it back, but
we figured Georgia.
We knew they were going to be hard pressed though because they lost so much talent. In the NFL draft this year, but no one at all had TCU in the situation.
Nobody,
not one person.
And it's wild because Georgia's favored by almost 2 touchdowns. When technically they are, I guess, if you're going by 6, but 13.5 point favorite right now. Georgia is.
And it was 12 on my right end.
Money keeps coming in.
It is grown.
Money keeps coming in here.
But this might be the worst placed national title game of all time. So they're playing this game at SoFi, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So kickoff's at 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern Time, which means it's 4:30 Pacific Time.
That's right.
In Los Angeles, California.
Exactly.
Which means it is rush hour traffic.
Yep.
Fans are not allowed to tailgate.
No.
At SoFi. This whole event is really kind of flying in the face of everything that makes the fandom of college football great.
And so you wonder why they chose this. I get it because the stadium is so nice. I get that this stadium is supposed to be nice.
Incredible stadium.
But half of going to a football game is the experience of it, especially on a game on this level. Like when we go to college football games, we've been to several Ole Miss games.
Right.
We've done several of the Grove experiences, and they're fun.
They are. They're blessed.
It's just the whole experience is fun, and you kind of miss out on. To your point, you miss out on a lot of that when it's just like in the middle of the day in work hour, in rush hour.
It kickoffs at 4:30 local time. That's a travesty. And then, like I said, you can't tailgate out before the game or any of that. Like what? Like I get that you're used to having the Chargers and the Rams play there and it's LA and no one really cares about anything unless it's super successful at that moment. But that's not what college football is. And I hope that they don't bring it back to SoFi. I think if they brought it to the Rose Bowl, like they could do a national title game at the Rose Bowl and that would be incredible because it's one of the greatest venues in all of college football for sure. But the whole SoFi thing is kind of weird to me. I do expect Georgia to win this game. I normally listen to the NFL channel on Sirius, but today I flipped over to ESPN for a brief second, and I quickly realized why I don't listen to them anymore. They were like, whoever the girl was or woman that was hosting the show, she said, "Well, this is." RG3 believes that TCU can win the national championship, and this is what they have to do to be successful, according to RG3. They play the clip. And RG3 proceeds to go and talk about, well, they've got to run the football well. They've got to throw the football well. They've got to convert third downs. They've got to get first downs. I was like, are you serious?
Won't you just say to win the game?
They have
to win the game.
To win the game, they have to play football.
Jeez.
Thank you, RG3, for that in-depth analysis.
So insightful. So insightful.
I appreciate that all the years of experience that you have has led to that little pearl of wisdom.
This is good Lord.
So
I'm glad I missed that.
but going into this game, Georgia is expected to win by basically 73% of the matchup predictors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in it's football, there's always the chance that Max Duggan and company could manage to get this thing done.
But they will have to play a perfect game, I think, against Georgia.
But
mistake-free football.
Yeah, 100%. But the thing that trips me out is the fact that Stetson Bennett, and I think I talked about this either last week or a couple weeks ago, that Stetson Bennett, by no right, should be where he's at.
Yeah.
You know, he's not a big dude.
Nope.
He's not a particularly fast dude. He's not particularly strong-armed even. But he just finds ways to win games for these Georgia Bulldogs. And granted, he has an embarrassment of talent around him and probably the greatest tight end room in the entire country.
Oh, no doubt.
But if Georgia wins back-to-back national titles, they'll be the first team to do it in the college football playoff era, which I understand has only been around for 7 years now. So it's not like there's a size to do it, but
Sure.
It's still going to be history making in and of itself.
Well, I think it is. And then you look at, and as far as Stetson Bennett goes, real quick, I mean, this kid, all he simply does is keep rising to the occasion. He stays poised on that football field, and he does not get rattled. He doesn't get outside of his game, and he has no problem putting his nose down and playing football.
Yeah, and he played a rough game against Ohio State. It was not great.
But never quit in this game. Never got inside of himself. To me, that's what these winners. That's the difference between being a good quarterback and a really good quarterback is. It's the guys who they mess up and not having a good game, but they never quit. They're always just battling and fighting through it. And I think that's what Stetson Bennett to me is. He's not the guy where you look at you're picking first for the team if you're just looking at this kid. But if you got a scrapper out there who's going to go out and win you a game versus all this guy with the intangibles but no heart, hey, give me the guy with the heart.
Yeah.
Because when things get bad, that's the guy that's going to go. And so I just don't see any way TCU wins this game. Now, they could win it by 2 touchdowns. Something crazy could happen, but I don't think so.
Speaking of heart, though, I saw a picture the other day. It was of Taylor Heineke of the Washington Commanders. Yeah. And pretty gutsy football player, not the most athletically gifted, but he'll grind it out. But he was a picture was taken of him rocking a Shane Falco jersey. I thought that was great.
That's pretty cool.
So when I hear heart in the quarterback position, that's where my brain goes.
So I'm assuming you are going with Georgia today.
Oh, of course. Question. Yeah.
As I think most people are, except for people who are betting on TCU and TCU fans alone. That's a tough thing, man. I would love to see TCU win just because of what it would do to college football.
I think if anyone thought that if anyone thought that a Big 12 team would make the national title game, everyone thought it was going to be Oklahoma.
That's right.
Even with the departure of all the talent and the head coach and all that, I think everyone believed there was enough there that if any Big 12 team was even going to make the playoff,
it would be Oklahoma.
So TCU has already exceeded any and all expectations, and not to mention this is their first season under head coach Sonny Dykes.
Oh yeah.
You know, Gary Patterson's on Texas' staff as an analyst, and all they did was lose the Alamo Bowl. Yeah. And so you get Sonny Dykes in there year one. The only loss was in the Big 12 title game. They won a college football playoff game. Now they're playing for the college football championship.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's an impressive season for them, even if they do lose tonight.
No, absolutely. Yeah, they definitely don't have anything to hang their hat on. I mean, they're just.
I think that's, and honestly, I think the better thing, I think this is a really good thing for the Big 12 because when Texas and Oklahoma leave, TCU's going to stay there and be like, hey, 9 years ago, we were in the Mountain West.
That's right.
And all we have done since we've come to the Big 12 is lace up every Saturday and kick everyone's ass.
That's it, right?
And that is and they have. They played in New Year's Six bowls. They've played for the Big 12 championship. And now being in a national championship game, like if they were to win this game, somehow they pull the upset. They've won as many national championships in the last 17 years as the University of Texas.
That's right. Yep.
So
that's a completely true statement. All right, let's talk some NFL because there's some things that happened coming out of this weekend that, as a Cowboys fan, worries me, and I've been worried about all season. It reared its ugly head in just unanimous fashion yesterday. Because I've heard some Cowboy fans talking about, well, the game didn't really mean anything. You didn't know that.
You didn't know that
going into this football game as they were getting their butts kicked.
It could have meant everything.
It could have. This team had 11 3-and-outs yesterday. 11. That's embarrassing. Embarrassing.
So
your quarterback throws another pick six because he loves interceptions.
Do you have a favorite movie? Like, maybe not your absolute favorite movie, but a movie that you absolutely love where the lead actor, the main protagonist, you hate their performance? I do. It's the Lord of the Rings series. I love the Lord of the Rings movies. I hate Elijah Wood's performance.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
It irritates me to no end.
Yeah.
And Dak Prescott is Frodo Baggins.
He's your Frodo?
Yes.
He's your Frodo.
100%. Because he can come out there, and when his performance is good, it's great.
Does that mean Jerry Jones is your Gollum?
When it's bad, it's terrible. Well, I haven't gotten that far. I'm still stuck on Frodo Baggins right now.
But I just don't understand this whole thing with Dak right now.
And why is he trying to force feed the ball to Noah Brown?
And he does it in back-to-back situations, right? It's like, oh, it didn't work the first time? Let me try to get this interception the second time.
My thing with Noah Brown is, like, I understand Noah Brown was in that draft class with Dak and Zeke. They all came to the league together. Zeke and Noah Brown played college ball together at Ohio State. After 6 years, we know what Noah Brown is.
That's right.
And what he's not is the guy that you force feed the ball to.
Noah Brown is on that field right now because they went and shipped off Amari Cooper. It's the only reason. Because, once again, the Cowboys get starry-eyed, no pun intended, but it's what they do.
Well, it's also the contract, too.
Well, there was that. But it was also because Michael Gallup was playing good. Then he got hurt and missed forever.
Yeah.
But still, they showed enough to like, oh, he's going to be our new almost 1B. We'll have a 1A in CD. We'll have a 1B in Michael Gallup. We don't need an Amari Cooper. We've got Noah Brown over here. You just take up some slack over there, and it's not happening. Nobody is terrified of the Dallas Cowboy offense.
And it's weird because every time I get down on these Cowboys, they somehow manage to succeed in spite of themselves, right? Like, because going into the year, you and I talked about how questionable that offensive line was going to be, especially once Tyron Smith got hurt.
Yes.
Then they signed Jason Peters, but we knew Jason Peters wouldn't be going to be ready to play right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, all right, well, we didn't love the Tyler Smith pick. That actually managed to work. And then they get Sam Williams from Ole Miss, and that's had its moments where it's paid off. But Jalen Tolbert, that was a miss.
That's right.
Like, you drafted Jalen Tolbert, and then you also have Noah Brown and Michael Gallup, and these three guys. Oh, and you brought in James Washington.
Yes.
So all four. It's going to take four guys to try to replace Amari Cooper and what he did in the offense. Now, part of that's not on Michael Gallup to a degree.
Some of that's not.
So let's just say Jalen Tolbert and James Washington, because really those were the two that were brought in specifically to replace Amari Cooper.
Yes.
Jalen Tolbert has, 2 catches all year, and James Washington never played or played once for the Cowboys.
That is true.
This season. And he's now not even on the team.
Exactly.
Exactly. So that happens. You look at the defense, and sometimes this defense is lights out. Scary how good they play. And then other times you watch them play, and it's like, oh, they don't know how to football.
Well, here's what worried me about that defense.
And there's no middle of the field presence for that defense.
No.
There's no interior defensive tackles that bother you that can generate a pass rush or are elite run stoppers. Leighton Vander Esch is hurt, which he's actually had a really solid
year. He's had a really great year.
But he's been out. He'll play against Tampa.
That's right.
He'll be back for that.
Yeah.
But then you don't have a corner opposite Trayvon Diggs.
No, and once our two main corners when Anthony Brown went down,
and Jordan Lewis
went down, you really saw a fall off in that secondary.
When you saw Kelvin Joseph get out there, you're like, this sucks.
Yeah, this is going to be awful.
And they've since signed Mackenzie Alexander.
Xavier Rhodes just got signed.
And they just signed Xavier Rhodes, but he's on the practice squad. Yeah. He won't play the Tampa Bay game.
No. They're hoping they can get past Tampa enough to get him on the field, I think.
Yeah, try to get him rushed out there enough to play. And you know what? I will give them a little bit of credit because the difference between the Mike McCarthy era and the Clappy McClapperson era, Jason Garrett, is that Jason Garrett was always like, yeah, we're real happy with the players that we have.
Yeah, and Mike McCarthy, they're making moves now.
Well, then the Jones family, since they've gotten Mike McCarthy, the Jones family will come out and they're like, well, we're real happy with the players we have. And Mike McCarthy looks at him and says, like hell.
Yeah, we are not happy with this.
No, we can be better. We can be a better football team.
Exactly.
With better talent.
And before I get into this point I was about to make, Mike McCarthy does not get near enough credit for what he's done in Dallas.
Back-to-back 12-win seasons. Hasn't been done since the early 2000s.
Exactly. I mean, all he's done was bring a winning mindset to this organization. He's just not sitting there going through the motions. The man cares about football and obviously knows football.
I think people are down on Mike McCarthy just because of what a disaster his first season in Dallas was.
Oh, there's no question.
The whole COVID year, that was a nightmare.
But that was a nightmare for a lot of people there. And I think, we had this conversation at the show this weekend about the two faces of Cowboys fandom, how polar opposite they are. Because you got your football fans who love the Cowboys. That's us. And then you got your actual fanatics.
Right. The ones that the Cowboys are going to win the championship every year.
Every year. And it's always, it's.
Well, then you have the end of the world Cowboy fans.
Those are the ones I'm talking about.
When there's a minor inconvenience,
it's all doomsday. DEFCON 1.
Like I saw a guy on Twitter today talking about, well, Noah Brown and Michael Gallup, they can't get any separation. They've never done anything special. Like, well, pump the brakes.
That's not true.
Michael Gallup has made some ridiculously insane catches in his time in Dallas. Noah Brown, if you want to say that he doesn't do anything special, I'm with you.
Yep.
Because he doesn't. Like, he's a decent backup NFL wide receiver.
Sure. He'll never be more than a third stringer.
Oh, at best. Yeah. And but Michael Gallup, he doesn't belong in that conversation.
No.
But I was just like, that's kind of knee-jerk reaction stuff. But then, as much as I want to be down on Dak because of all the interceptions and the pick sixes, which ultimately do kill him, you look at what Dak's done since coming back from injury, and they're basically leading the league in scoring. They're leading the league in third down conversions.
And I'm glad you said that.
So
that's what I wanted to talk about. So I was looking at Dallas at their opponents this year. They have beaten 1, 2, 3 now that they won last night. 4. Let's see. 5, because they did beat the Eagles. So they've beaten 5 teams with a winning record. We're not counting the Giants twice. I mean, they beat the Giants twice, but 5 different teams with a winning record. They did lose to the Buccaneers. They lost to the Eagles once.
But you look at the teams that they lost to.
And they lost to the Packers.
And the Packers were a win away from making the playoffs.
Yeah, and then look at what the Jaguars have done.
Jaguars won their division.
They did. They've come back and they've won their division.
And even the Commanders, just a couple weeks ago, the Commanders were in the playoffs.
Yep.
So it's not like they've lost to any bad. Even Washington, like the Washington loss, I think is their worst loss.
Oh yeah,
no
doubt.
And Washington's a 500 football team.
Yeah, I think the Washington loss for me is the worst one because this is end of season. You got to be playoff ready. Yeah. You can't have this.
You have to be on an upward trajectory at this point.
Yeah. So it's to me, but that's a representation of what the NFL is this year. Because I looked at several other teams, and all of them kind of look the same. Because now you have a lot of middle of the road teams.
While Washington has beaten us, remember this same Washington football team also beat the Eagles.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So they
beat the Eagles with Jalen Hurts.
And then what they do, then they let the Cleveland Browns just destroy them. The week before?
But the thing is, Washington doesn't have enough talent to win games, but they have a lot of gritty dudes that will beat you up for 60 minutes.
Their defensive front is awesome.
Well, they spent a first-round pick on defensive linemen like 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yes, they have.
Or I think it was 3 years in a row. They got Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and Chase Young. I don't think that was the right order, but 3 straight years, defensive linemen were their first pick in the draft. So you should have a ferocious front four.
Yeah. We were watching the Jaguars-Titans game, and the Titans, despite themselves, had this game in the bag.
They
The
did.
Jaguars were just shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, and I love Trevor Lawrence, and he missed some pass that because you could see it on his face when he missed that first one wide open in the end zone.
Oh,
right?
Zay Jones was running.
Oh my God, he was like, how did I throw the ball that much? Because he's got a great arm on him.
And he's also 6'8". So
exactly, so he just flicked the ball, which
I know he's actually 6'6".
but that dude is tall,
Yeah,
and
that's the point.
But then, and I think that's the thing with this team is they have found ways to win sometimes in spite of it when adversity came. And I hated that for Dobbs.
Well, you know what that way to win is? A man by the name of Rayshon Jenkins.
Oh, dude.
Rayshon Jenkins gets the forced fumble on Joshua Dobbs that Josh Allen, the defensive end, recovers and runs back for the touchdown that basically gives Jacksonville the go-ahead score to win the game. Rayshon Jenkins was also the one that picked off Dak Prescott in overtime and ran it back for a touchdown to win that game over the Cowboys.
Yes,
like Rayshon Jenkins is a baller. Josh Allen is a baller. Trevor Lawrence, despite what we saw against the Titans, he has really stepped it up this year under Doug Peterson here in year 2. We've seen Travis Etienne come on. Granted, the Jaguars also went out and got some guys. They got Marvin Jones Jr., Zay Jones. They got Evan Ingram. Doug Peterson and company have really turned that culture around, and the Jaguars, these young guys that are on the Jaguars specifically, are finally understanding what it takes to win in the NFL.
Yeah. And we talked about that at the beginning of the season. Could Doug Peterson being there in Jacksonville?
I think
he really turn this organization
I think he should 100% be maybe not necessarily the favorite, but he should be in the thick of the Coach of the Year.
Yeah, no
conversation.
Doubt. No doubt. So let's look at the playoffs. They start this weekend. We got 3 days of it: Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night. It's coming. It's here. Let's take a look at the NFC. We've got on Saturday at 4:30. We got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers all day. You thinking?
Yeah, I can't believe Brock Purdy is playing the way he is, but he's also got a ridiculously loaded team.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But at the same time, he's got to make that thing go, and he has been. So.
Would it surprise you to see San Francisco playing in the Super Bowl? I just the way they've been playing, it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't
Looking
surprise
at everybody else who's on this thing. It just doesn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me roster wise, but everything goes to that quarterback spot, and so for me to imagine Brock Purdy leading the 49ers in the Super Bowl, kind of baffles me.
Well, it does, but as far as just the way they're playing right now, as on fire as this team is,
they are lighting it up.
They look unbeatable. They just are tough right now.
But hey, shout out, and you said that the Seahawks are playing the 49ers there, which they are. Shout out to Geno Smith. He broke Russell Wilson's Seattle Seahawks single season passing record this weekend.
Isn't that crazy? That's still wild to me. But we used to talk about this when all the hype was around Russell Wilson. Like, yeah.
And deservedly so, by the way.
He's a really good quarterback, but he was never one that stretched the field. He threw a lot of short to mid-range, and then he had some of that speed out there with
Russell Wilson used to uncork some moon balls, man.
What I'm saying.
He would launch those things into orbit.
He would, but most of his passes were the short to mid-range because they ran a lot of the crossing stuff.
Yeah, but
who's the guy?
But you had to look at the receivers he had back then.
Well, that's what I was getting
prior to DK. He had Doug Baldwin.
Yes.
Tyler Lockett. What was that's name? Golden Tate.
Golden Tate's who I was trying to think.
He had small receivers.
He did.
Like
so
dudes
he had
that were
speedy guys,
all under 6 feet tall.
That's right. So you saw the way that he played there, and then watching the way Geno, it's like watching two different styles of play from the quarterback position in a team where you're like, okay, I just had no expectation for Geno Smith this year. I thought, well, Seattle just phoning it in this year.
But
here they are right here in the playoffs.
But you know what I think has really helped Geno though?
What's that?
My boy Kenneth Walker the
third. Ain't no question.
Like the way that I think he got another 100-yard rushing game this week against the Rams, which brought his total to like 5 for his rookie season, which isn't great, but with the offensive line that Seattle has, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
in a way.
No doubt.
But it's really helped alleviate some of that stress off of Geno Smith.
No, I agree 100%. It's just so funny to see it. We're looking at this going, just Geno Smith is in the playoffs.
I'm really
leading a football team, and Russell Wilson is sitting at home being bashed about his.
Now, granted, Russell Wilson started playing really well towards the end of the year.
Yep.
It's just a shame that it took that long, but I think the difference is you have stability in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
because Pete Carroll's been there for so long with his staff. Whereas in Denver, they keep hiring coordinators who have never been a head coach. And it's been that way since Kubiak retired.
Yeah, exactly.
Like after Super Bowl 50, Kubiak retired, Peyton Manning retired. They just started bringing in a string of coordinators who had never been head coach, and it has never worked out.
And yet they keep doing it.
Well, now they're interviewing Sean Payton, and they've requested permission to interview Dan Quinn.
And that's a number 1 draft pick. That's what Saints are wanting for Sean Payton. Because, they still own that deal.
He's under contract to them. His contract didn't expire.
So, which is going to be a lot for us. We'll be talking about that, I'm sure, as these playoffs roll on. Chargers-Jaguars cap off the Saturday night game. The line is the Chargers by 1 on the road in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is hosting a playoff game. What you got?
The thing is, the Chargers are so ferociously talented.
Yes.
Like they are. I think if you just took their roster, you could put it up against any roster in the NFL and say, yeah, they got a chance. Or if not, they outright win.
Yep.
The thing with the Chargers is they have to keep winning in spite of their head coach. Who keeps and I like Brandon Staley, but he keeps making really questionable decisions all the time. However, they got a playoff appearance now under their belt. First playoff game for Justin Herbert. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Justin Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
But I think that even if the Chargers do win this game, I think Brandon Staley's still going to be in that hot seat conversation.
I think so too.
Maybe not necessarily fired, but he'll be in the hot seat conversation.
So who you pulling? Who you thinking here?
Man,
it's so tough.
I really like the Chargers. Like, I'm happy for Jacksonville and everything, and I'm happy for Evan Ingram. But man, I love Justin Herbert. I really love Austin Eckler. And and I'm a big Derwin James guy too. Right. So I'm gonna take the Chargers in that one.
All right. So Sunday, early game, 12 noon, we've got the Dolphins taking on the Bills. And Lord, the Dolphins have fallen.
Yeah.
Fallen.
They've lost, 6 in a row, 7 in a row?
After setting it on fire, and it's just gone downhill for this football team. The line is Buffalo by 10.5.
Now, I like what Mike McDaniel is putting together there, but the thing is they're still a work in progress.
Yes. Yes, they are.
They were not plug and play ready where you could just take guys and put them into the offense or the defense and be ready to roll. Although they made great additions, Tyreek Hill, they traded for Bradley Chubb. I like where the Dolphins are trending towards, especially after this next offseason. But right now, I think if there was a time for it to be the Bills' time, this is it.
Oh, I agree. You got the Giants and the 3:30 slot. Lions only Minnesota by 3 at home.
Yeah, I would take Minnesota. Like, they don't blow people out, but they win close games because they have enough cumulative experience to find ways to win. Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, TJ Hawkinson now. And while the Giants do actually have some cool defensive pieces between Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, I think the Minnesota offense has more than what the Giants do on defense.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Giants can necessarily keep pace with the Vikings. So I'm going to take the Vikings to win.
And then we've got the Ravens taking on the Bengals in the night game on Sunday night. The line is Cincinnati by 6.5.
Do the Ravens have Lamar Jackson coming back? As far as I know, they don't.
I don't think so.
So give me Joey B and company.
And then Monday night, we've got the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. 7:15 kickoff. Line is Dallas by 3 on the road. Okay. Okay.
I don't. Well, see, here's the thing we didn't talk about the Cowboys earlier. So here's how the season has played out for the Cowboys. They lost week 1 against Tampa Bay, right? Mm-hmm. They won 4 straight.
Yes.
And then they lost, and then they won 2 straight.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lost, and they won 4 straight. And then they lost, and then they won 2 straight, and then they lost.
Yep.
So if the pattern holds, the Cowboys are going to win 4 in a row and be the Super Bowl champions, is all I'm saying.
I would love for that to be the case.
But patterns don't dictate reality.
No, it doesn't.
And while Tampa Bay is immensely talented, they did have kind of a coming out party 2 weeks ago. And then this past game, they just try to get as many people game time as possible because they knew they weren't going to be better than fourth place, and they knew they weren't going to be worse than fourth place.
Exactly.
So I don't really know where Tampa Bay's at, and that's kind of what worries me. Also, the fact that Tom Brady, in his 23 years as a NFL quarterback, has never lost to the Dallas Cowboys.
Exactly.
He just doesn't do it.
No.
So I'm going to be cheering for the Cowboys. I want the Cowboys to win. I just don't know how to feel, especially with that performance the Cowboys just left on Sunday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, it's that time of the show. Of course, we don't have the beautiful graphics this time. It breaks my heart, but it's true. We just don't. But we got to give out a few awards. We got our Drizzler Awards coming up. Start with that one. Who you got?
The Dallas Cowboys organization.
There you go. Amen. I'm not even arguing. I agree.
Play calling was bad. Execution was bad. Zeke and Tony Pollard combined for 15 carries for 29 yards because that's awesome. Dak Prescott, 7 passes. He was under 50% completion. So he was forcing balls. It looked like no one on the Cowboys wanted to be there.
No.
Coaching staff included.
Yeah, they all looked just, it was sad.
All the problems that we have known about since the preseason, since training camp, since off-season workouts, since basically everything post-draft.
That's right.
All the deficiencies we knew finally every one of them reared their head in that game against the Commanders. So, I got to put that one on the Cowboys. They're the Drizzler this week.
So do you think, I'm just, tossing things out there. Cowboys go one and done again.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of coaching situation do you think we're looking at as far as coordinators? And I mean, we can throw head coaching in there, but as far as these coordinator positions go.
Well, the thing is, coaches don't make $40 million. So who gets fired first? It's the coaches.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Even despite back-to-back 12-win seasons, something that Jerry Jones has not seen since, I think, 2006 when Wade Phillips was the head coach. Because of that, I think Mike McCarthy is liable to get fired, especially if it's a one and done. If it is one and done, I think you see McCarthy go, Dan Quinn gets a head coaching gig somewhere, and then Kellen Moore might get let go when the new regime comes in.
So speaking of all of that, do you think it's plausible? And this is such a huge conspiracy theory because we're getting to the fanatical side of the Cowboys fan base because I saw this last night. It's the reason why I'm asking this question. Cowboys are one and done again. Sean Payton sitting out there, who Jerry Jones and just love. They love them some Sean Payton.
Jerry Jones gave up a 1 for Amari Cooper. It kind of bit them because their first pick in that next draft was Tristan Hill in the second round, and we saw how well that didn't work out. I don't think he gives up a 1 to get Sean Payton.
Yeah.
He just won't do it.
I don't think so either, but it is an interesting thing.
I think he would love to have him, but
I think the bigger question is our coordinators. What do we see, especially if this offense is? I don't know that Kellen is here next season.
I don't think he is.
And I'm pretty sure that we are going to lose our defensive coordinator anyway.
Yeah.
This is last.
I mean, we were expecting to lose him this year.
That's right. And we just got lucky. We got another season with him.
But speaking of coordinators and just crazy things, this kind of brings me around to my big kahuna. I don't know. Are you in agreement?
Let's do it. That was already mine. Yeah.
Okay. So the Kansas City Chiefs are my big kahunas this week.
Oh, Lord. Dude, that thing.
They literally were on an NFL field playing a ring around the rosy, a direct snap to the running back, who then laterals it to the quarterback, who then throws across the field to a wide receiver who breaks a tackle and gets around the edge to the sideline, score a touchdown. I mean, it got called back, and then they ended up scoring on the very next play.
That's right.
But just the cojones to draw that up and to put that out there on the field in Week 18, because the Chiefs know basically we got nothing to lose.
That's right.
And it's the Raiders, and they are not on our level.
Yeah. Let's have a little fun out here.
And I mean, that absolutely blew my mind. And I don't know why I'm blanking on their offensive coordinator's name.
But this is what I love.
He's been mentioned in these head coaching conversations for like 4 years now.
Yeah, and you could see him leaving to get one, but
But they are my big Kahuna because like that, the audacity to do that.
it.
I mean, you just Kansas City went out there and absolutely big leagued the Raiders.
Oh, they did. Oh, it was sad. I mean, just here's an in your face. And Andy Reid, I mean, this dude, I'm so happy for him. All the years of futility in Philadelphia.
I wouldn't even say futility. They went to 4 straight NFC title games.
Well, what I'm talking about is just everything you have to deal with as a Philly coach.
Oh yeah,
being in that trash.
It's hard.
Hole,
it's rough.
It's tough. And then he gets out of that. He's relaxing. He goes right back into Kansas City, and has nothing but success there. He finally gets a Super Bowl win, and with a community that absolutely loves this guy.
Well, he also ended up with a Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and there's
a Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
And a Tyreek Hill.
Sure, but again, in Philly, he had weapons there.
Yeah,
at times. Now
Travis Kelce probably. I mean, you can make the argument between him, Gronk, and Tony Gonzalez, like the 3 greatest tight ends of all time.
Probably so.
Patrick Mahomes, when it's all said and done, I don't know where he'll be, but fact is, we've seen him do stuff on a football field that I haven't seen many other people do. Tyreek Hill might be the fastest wide receiver in the NFL, just elite burner speed, and rubs it in your face while he's doing it.
Yeah, there's no question. And he's not one of those guys that I'll ever say as being one of the great receivers of all time. He is one of the absolute speediest dudes out there that can burn people.
And to his credit, like Tyreek Hill had some issues, I want to say, that happened in college that kind of got brought up when he was in the NFL, or maybe it did pop up or maybe he did it while he was early in his NFL tenure. But he, was able to put it behind him. He's not nearly the headache by any stretch of the imagination that T.O. was.
Oh, God, no.
When Andy Reid had him.
No.
Patrick Mahomes, far better quarterback than McNabb. Not that
by far.
Not that Prime McNabb was
bad.
Like he I mean, he was really, really, really good. Maybe not necessarily great, but he was a pretty good quarterback. And Brian Westbrook was an impressive running back.
Yes, he was.
Which they still don't really have a running back, but the levels of speed that they have on that offense.
And that's where the difference is. The speed is insane.
It's murderer's row of guys who can just run fast.
And people thought when Tyreek Hill left to go down to Miami, this is going, they're in trouble now.
Well, they drafted Sky Moore.
Yep.
They brought in Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yep.
Lost his speed and replaced it with more speed.
Yeah, it was like, we'll get another fast guy. Let's get a couple of them for good measure, just because.
They're my big Kahunas this week.
Yeah.
Just for the way
mine's TCU, simply because they're the first Texas team to go to the college football playoff, and the first Texas team in forever since Texas to get to a national championship. And they were not picked. We talked about this at the very beginning of the show. No one had them in the national championship by the end of the season. It wasn't a thing that anybody thought was going to happen. But all TCU has done is go out there and prove people wrong and keep winning football games. And at the end of the day, regardless of the score, as long as you have the W in your column, that's all that matters. And TCU has done that all season long.
Yeah,
and I love it. I love it for this group of kids out there who are fighting and going this now. Just don't get embarrassed tonight. If you lose, at least make it close. All right. I just don't want to see them get embarrassed.
Well, I think after the way that they were able to hang with Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
Georgia can go out there and embarrass anyone.
Yes, they can.
Let's not
get
it twisted. But Georgia struggled to get through Ohio State. So I think this game, if I was betting this game, if the line is 13, I'll take that action.
Yeah. Yeah. We will find out tonight,
I will gladly take the TCU plus 13.
Yep. We getting ready. It's getting closer and closer to kickoff.
Yeah, we're an hour and 14 minutes away from kickoff.
That's right.
But before we go, just some quick NFL news. So the Arizona Cardinals have fired Cliff Kingsbury.
Yep, we expected it.
Which their GM, Steve Keim, has also stepped away from the team for health reasons, which that's been going on for about a month, really, and not completely unexpected. The Titans have fired 4 of their assistant coaches, including their offensive coordinator. The Houston Texans fired Lovie Smith after 1 season. That was 1 year after they fired David Culley after 1 season.
Who wants that job?
No one.
Who wants that job?
And what's really bad is we have this conversation every offseason about the lack of opportunities for black head coaches in the NFL.
Yes.
Houston will give them that opportunity for one season.
And then say bye.
But the opportunity is contingent upon we are not going to give you anything
We're not
to
gonna
be
help
successful with.
That's right. The
So,
Texans organization is a crap hole.
Yeah, so
it's a black hole dumpster fire.
So for them to hire black head coaches back-to-back years, only give each of them 1 year, and then give them, and Lovie Smith, if you guys don't remember, coached the Rex Grossman-led Chicago Bears to a Super Bowl appearance.
Exactly. The man kind of knows what he's doing.
He knows football. And then so Brandon Cooks comes out today and he says that he doesn't want any part of being involved in a rebuild.
No, I wouldn't either.
And which Brandon Cooks, if you remember at the deadline, was pushing hard to get traded potentially to the Cowboys, but just he wanted out of Houston. Tua Tagovailoa still not cleared, and Raheem Mostert has a broken thumb for the Miami Dolphins as they look to go into the postseason. Sean McVay is mulling his immediate future, and he says that he's not done coaching. He just might not do it for the LA Rams.
Yeah, he got him a girl now.
And then running back Josh Jacobs has stated that he hopes to re-sign with the Raiders, who did not pick up his fifth-year option. And all he did was go out there and crush it this year, despite how bad the Raiders were, or just inept.
Yeah.
They weren't even bad. They were just
inept.
They were inept when it mattered the most. Jet star defensive tackle Quentin Williams says he wants a new deal by April, and he's willing to sit out all the voluntary workouts and stuff. But he has put the Jets on notice with the deadline. And hey, if there's a guy in the Jets organization that is worth the pay, it's Quentin Williams. And then my other last one is that Jeff Saturday wants to be considered for the Colts head coaching job. I don't know that he did anything worth meriting that. So there's five head coaching vacancies in the NFL right now: Arizona, Houston, Denver, Indianapolis, and I'm trying to think of the other one.
So I was
but slipping my mind right now. But there are five.
Well, we're talking about the Titans, and the four assistants are gone now, including their OC. That team was plagued.
They also fired their GM several weeks ago.
Exactly. That team has been plagued with injuries. It is insane how many injuries this team had.
Eric Bieniemy is the Chiefs' offensive coordinator.
Hey, there you go.
And he'll get thrown around in the head coaching conversation this offseason.
Yeah.
But as you're saying.
But no, so I think it's, I'm surprised at some of this. Some of it I'm not. But because what would have shocked me is because we had this conversation the other night about Mike Vrabel. There's no way you fire this dude. Not with the injury bug they have. I love him as head coach. He is fiery. He is he understands the game.
He is primal alpha male.
Dude is just, that's what he was created for. This dude was created for football. It's Mike Vrabel
and Dan Campbell.
Yeah, Dan Campbell's another one. Yeah, absolutely.
And you look at what they did. They were one Baker Mayfield interception away from making the postseason.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
Straight up.
So I'm glad to see that Mike Vrabel's still there. I think this season for Tennessee was just injury play. You just can't overcome that many.
The owner shouldn't have been cheap. Should have paid AJ Brown.
Yeah, that's why he got.
That makes a huge difference. And Ryan Tannehill is a fine NFL quarterback.
Yeah,
but that's it. That's all he's going to be. Like by this point in his career, we understand that.
That's right.
Was it? And people are like, well, he was killing it a couple years ago. Well, he also had AJ Brown a couple years ago.
That's right.
They took away AJ Brown. We saw what happened when he was in Miami and he didn't have anybody. We saw what happened.
Mm-hmm. And it's just true. And you got to have those guys.
But that Titan predicated upon the running game. But they lost Roger Saffold in free agency to the Bills. Taylor Lewan tore his ACL. Yep. So they were beat up on that offensive line, which I understand that Derrick Henry's a man beast. But if you have no one blocking, you can't just run through people all the time.
No, you can't.
You got to have at least a hole to get upfield to start running over people.
That's right. And it's just get that little head of steam in there. But I don't know. It's going to be because we haven't seen the last of the coaching leaving these teams. It's about to get really crazy, I think. So
it's going to be fun to see where this coaching carousel lands. We're about to head into the NFL postseason. We got the playoffs. The Super Bowl will be around mid-February. You think the combine's 2 weeks after that. Then free agency starts in early March, and then the NFL drafts in mid to late April.
That's right.
Like, football never sleeps.
It doesn't.
And the XFL's kicking off right after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There
We're not going to get as big a break as we used to when it comes to talking football.
Man,
it'll be a lot of it.
There's a lot going on.
It is. All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. Catch y'all next week.